Hey, Shalom Akim Shalom. First thing and foremost, I want to give all praises and glory and honor that's due to Yahweh Ba'ashim, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashim Rakakwadash. I want to give double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone and rule well. Peace and blessings and salutations to the hopeful elect. Knows in the gospel, broad, lifting up the standard of Yahweh Ba'ashim, Yahweh Shai, wherever it may be. This is another lesson through the Spirit. It says U.S. Unemployment rate rise, a warning sign for the economy. This is another outlook on the economic decline of America, a.k.a. Babylon, to show you how we're in a time now that Yahweh Shai is getting ready to make his return to a fallen world to gather his elect of the nation of Israel, of the so-called Negro, Hispanic, and Native American. And you have what they call the Israelite foreigners, all right, that will look like other nations, not the heathen. Salvation is only for Israel. Scriptures prove that. But it says here, employers added 64,000 jobs in November, according to data delayed by the government shutdown. It says the unemployment rate ticked up to 4.6%, the highest level in 4 years, which me personally, I believe unemployment is probably between 5 and 10%. And that may be a big jump, but unemployment is way more than 4.6% because you have what they call underemployed, when people are not essentially making the necessary income to survive, okay, below poverty standards. You got people making $12 an hour working 4 hours a day, which is 20 hours a week to try to make ends meet, and that's nearly impossible. It says here, the unemployment rates rose in November, a warning sign for the health of a labor market that has been strained by federal layoffs, rising costs. It says the jobless rate last month rose to 4.6%, up from 4.4% in September, the last month, for which officials had a full picture of the labor force before its weeks-long government shutdown. It says it was the highest unemployment rate since September 2021, when the economy was emerging from the pandemic, and it increased from 4.0 in January. It says employees add 64,000 jobs in November, partly reversing a decline in October. But the federal government has lost 168,000 jobs, which a lot of them were so-called black women, jobs over the past 2 months, as workers hit by deferred resignations came off the payroll. It says wage growth has also slowly, notably, to a level not seen since 2021. And you notice that's around the time that things started to get more expensive. It says a measure that comes at a time with an increasing number of Americans are expressing pessimism about the economy. You got Trump talking about getting the economy back on point and making things a little bit more affordable, which ain't shit affordable here, man. All right, you got people literally trying to rob Peter to pay Paul to make rents for a 1-bedroom apartment going $1,500, man. 500 square feet. That's crazy work. It says analysis and policymakers have hoped that today's report will help clarify the state of the economy after months of conflicting signals. But the report also includes some belated data on October collected from a survey of employees after the government shutdown had ended. So this is the report. It says interest rates, the report to reinforce the Federal Reserve's decision to cut interest rates last week. And allegedly they're supposed to curb inflation, but yet prices are still high. It says the Fed, on guard for signs that labor market is on the cusp of cracking, has delivered a series of quarter-point interest rate cuts in September, weighing the labor market's weakness against the risk of posed by elevation inflation. So a lot of times what they would do, they will raise the interest rates to basically curb inflation, to balance everything out. Because at a point in time here in Missouri or Kansas City, we saw a 17% increase in 1 year of inflation. With the housing went up damn to 30%, man. Once for a 1-bedroom you was paying $500, $600 for, you're now paying damn near $1,000 for a 1-bedroom apartment, man. It's crazy. But it says here, among the forces affecting the report was the end of deferred resignation program for federal officials that so-called Department of Government Efficiency launched this year. And what happened to all that money? You know, that the billions of dollars that you saved and that you were supposed to be reimbursing Americans, what happened? But it says the report also shows a large jump in a broader measure of labor market slack. People who are working part-time, who would rather work full-time, as well as those who want a job but haven't looked in the past month. That share was 8.7% in November, up a full percentage point since this time last year. Jake workers, the unemployment rate is especially grim for black workers. It says up to 8.3%, which is more than 2% points since the beginning of the year. Black workers are often the harbingers of what to come in the labor market. It says they have been buffeted by federal policies over the past year, especially federal layoffs. As I mentioned, a lot of black women lost their jobs. It says manufacturing shed 5,000 jobs in November, but so far the sector has not appeared to benefit from the president's trade war, which he had administrated, or which he and his administration have argued will bring manufacturing jobs to the United States, which it didn't. And he knew it wasn't. It was just another way of tanking the economy because, like I mentioned, they want to go digital. Okay, so they have to collapse this system in order to get the new system up and running. But it says here, this report is late and a bit complicated because of the 43-day government shutdown that ended last month. But November jobs data was supposed to be released on December 5th. So today's report including November data, but also the belatedly gathered October data. Publications of September job data was delayed more than 6 weeks. And that report showed a greater than expected increase in hiring, but with uneven gains centered on the healthcare and hospitality industries with a rising unemployment, man. You know, so it's not looking too good, Pete. Look at the chart. Manufacturing fell off. Federal government, leisure and hospitality, transportation and warehousing, all lacking. And he destroyed, and he don't give a shit. He don't care. He like, I don't give a shit, man. To help these people, he's not taking a hit. He care less. And like I said, it's all about design. But it says the White House on Tuesday sought to recast a dour November jobs reports as a sign of economic progress, shrugging off the uptick in the nation's unemployment rate and other potential hints of weakness looming over the economy. It says top aides to President Trump instead have argued that the data showed the nation still on track and poised to grow substantially next year as they forge ahead with their new campaign to assuage voters anxious about their finances. But the best is yet to come, the White House posted on social media. Because remember, what is it called? Project 2025. And also he mentioned that it was going to be 2 years of pain. So expect this system to collapse, man. They're talking about anywhere from now up until 2027, 28, we can see a financial collapse unlike any other. You know, Lord's will, we see it sooner than later. But it says the first full-time jobs report since federal shutdown, the government has reported a rise in the jobless rates to 4.6 last month, up from 4.4% from the last gauge in September. But the unemployment rate for November was the highest in 4 years, man. Okay. So, yeah, and the fact that he's dismissed it, that show you there that he's not really concerned about the people in America, man, all right? Because it was never about you people in the first way, you know? See, peep this. It says, he said that private sector employment has been a source of strength. But overall, U.S. employers added 64,000 jobs in November, reversing a decline from October, a 2-month period that saw the federal government shed its 168,000 jobs. He says, I think that from the private sector point of view, it's just about what we've been getting all year. It's solid upward trajectory, he said. But the comments from Mr. Hassett, one of the candidates whom Trump is considering as his next pick to lead the Federal Reserve, came as an administration unfurled a more detailed counter argument on social media. All right. But regardless of it, you know, America is done. There's no healing of Babylon the Great. All right. And he don't give a shit about you people. So this is the book of Isaiah 19. And I'm going to start at verses 2. And it says, and I will set the Egyptians against the Egyptians, and they shall fight everyone against his brother, everyone against his neighbor, city against city, kingdom against kingdom, civil war. And the spirit of Egypt shall fall in the midst thereof, and we're witnessing it. Okay, people are losing all types of hope for the American dream because they're realizing that it was nothing more but a well-generated scam. Okay, as the Federal Reserve, the IRS, all these bureaucracies and these Title 4D is all based out of fraudulent practices, man. You know, foreign treaties from The Hague. It's all wickedness. And people have been caught up in this web of deception, and they ain't been able to get out. So eventually people are going to catch on to it, and they're going to start to revolt, which in my humble opinion, they should have did this shit 50 years ago. All right, because it was quite obvious that this place was taking your money and you wasn't getting any kickback from it. You know, and then giving your money to lobbyists, that added insult to injury, because now majority of your tax dollars are going to help these countries in foreign aid to Israel, to Ukraine, you know, 20-something billion in transgender research, which, you know, they speculated it wasn't that much. But even then, you got something which is called unaccounted expenses, man, when they're not really generating on expense report on what's what, you know, and people are just losing money hand over fist. And then he was talking about, you know, which it was rumor, but they was talking about the Americans, since this Doge shit, the Department of Efficiency, Americans could receive up to $5,000 to $8,000 stimulus checks. But since then, there hasn't been the talk. So all that money that they got from these programs that they quote unquote investigated, they basically just sent it over to Israel, man. All right, and put it into them taking over the or put it into that military coups. You know, that is what I see from it. But anyway, Isaiah 19:3, and it says, and the spirit of Egypt shall fall in the midst thereof, and I will destroy the counsel thereof, and they shall seek to the idols, and to them the charmers, and to them that have familiar spirits, and to the wizards. And the Egyptians would I give over to the hand of a cruel lord, a fierce king shall rule over them, says Yahweh, the Lord of hosts. And that fierce king, we speculate that is DJ Trump, man. All right, because like I said, man, Trump even mentioned, he said, look, government workers, they wasn't going to get any type of, what do you call it, any back pay. He said a lot of them probably weren't even going to get back pay, which essentially you have to pay the people their money, you know, because, I mean, you got a workforce, you got to pay your people, or they're not going to work for you no more. But he was saying, like, I'm not giving them back pay. Now, if that's true or not, I don't know, because I haven't done the research on it, but it doesn't surprise me. And it says, and the water shall fill from sea to sea, and the rivers and the river should be wasted and dried up. All right, because like I mentioned, your economy can't sustain anymore, man, and they can't continue to print out money out of thin air because it's not being backed by anything. As the scriptures go into silver and gold being a real source of currency, right along with livestock, you know, cattle, all these things, gold, silver, precious metals. That's the real money. Verses 14, it says, the Lord have mingled a perverse spirit in the midst thereof. They have caused Egypt to earn every work thereof as a drunken man that's staggering in his vomit. Yep. You know, all the work from your top positions to your lower level entry positions. All right. The government jobs are going to be shut down eventually. You know, the city jobs, because even here in Missouri, I think they are in a hole for, it's like a some $1 million deficit, which a lot of that money being passed around is going to politicians and funding their campaigns and, you know, decorating their yachts and their penthouses and suites. And that's really where the money is going. All right. It ain't like they're trying to throw it back into the economy or even increase the job market. But instead, you know, the money is going back into the pockets of these politicians. And, you know, we have to front the bill as usual, you know, which proves that this is a wicked ass satanic system. But yeah, you got Israelites that want to stay here. That's crazy. And it says here, neither should there be any work for Egypt, which the head or tail, branch or rush may do. And in that day, Egypt should be like unto women, and should be afraid and fear because of the shaking of the hand of Yahweh of hosts, which he's shaking over it. Yeah. And once this market collapse, people are going to lose it, man, because they're going to go to the banks and try to get their money out the banks. And essentially, they're not going to be able to do so because the money ain't going to be in there. Okay, you have what they call fractional reserve banking. Look it up, man. And this is why most people get paid 2 to 3 weeks out, because the money that you put in your bank, they loan it out. They give it to foreign countries, and they don't have your money in the bank. And when you go to collect your money, then all of a sudden, you're the one that's being investigated, which is crazy work. All right, Ezekiel 7, and I'm gonna start at verses. Let's start at verses 19. It says, "And they should cast their silver in the streets, and their gold should be removed, and their silver and their gold should not be able to deliver them in the day of the Lord's wrath, or in the day of the wrath of the Lord. And they should not satisfy their souls, neither fill their bowels, because it is the stumbling block of their iniquity." Yeah, okay. All this they call emotional binge shopping, and people just buying purchases because for the fuck of it. And those days are gonna be over with. Because one thing about it with women, they spend money. They do what they call emotional binge shopping. When they're emotional, when they're going through shit, they look for reasons to spend money on things they don't need. And it gives them a temporary dopamine hit. And then they're back to their depression. And it's a constant, it's like drugs, man. But the Lord said they should cast their silver and gold in the streets, meaning that the money they got is not going to be worth anything. I'll get one more precept. Revelation, 6 and 5. And it says, and when he had opened this third seal, I heard the third beast say, "Come and see." And I beheld, and lo, a black horse, and he that sat on him had a pair of balances in his hand. And I heard the voice in the midst of the four beasts say, "A measure of wheat for a penny, and a measure of barley for a penny, and a measure of wheat for a penny, and 3 measures of barley for a penny. And see, thou hurt not the oil and the wine," which goes into the truth, okay, the elect. But it says a measure of wheat for a penny. Yeah, and you go into the word penny, it goes into the denarius, which is a dollar's wage. During the time of the Roman Empire, you got a particular pay for a dollar's. You got a particular a pay for labor. For a day of work. Slacky, my brain is not functioning properly. But anyway, denarius containing 10, a Roman silver coin in the New Testament time. It says it took its name from it being equal to 10 asses. All right. It says increased to 16.3.898 grams, or 0.1375 ounces. It said it was the principal silver coin of the Roman Empire. From the parable of laborers in the vineyard, it was seen that the denarius was then the ordinary pay for a day's wages. So that's basically what you got paid. Now, if you look up silver, the price of silver now has gone up to $58 an ounce. All right, it was 26, but peep this. Price of, let's look up silver. Oh, wow. The shit was just $58 last week. It's $66.75 for an ounce of silver. It's crazy, man. That's how you know we're in the middle of a collapse. Silver was just like, matter of fact, a couple of months ago, silver was $26 an ounce. Silver, that's lowest price. Peep this. It says the absolute lowest, saw the lowest average price was around 28 cents an ounce, or 24 cents. As the world faced a severe economic collapse. That's proved that we're in the middle of a collapse. The precious metals are going up. Early 1990s, prices dropped to around $3.55 an ounce in 1991. 1982 crash, silver's yearly low fell from $11 an ounce to under $5 during a major market correction. 2016, due to inflation, a significant dip saw prices under $14 an ounce after a period of growth. And that's relatively cheap by today's standards. That's how you know that we're in the midst of a collapse, man. Okay? But anyway, with that, all praises and glory and honor that's due to Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai. Lord's will, you will edify. To the next lesson. Shalom.